Engine 1 from car 1. Car 1's on scene at Suburban Command. Give me a C.A.N report.
What's up, everybody? This is Mike Goldstein, stickers of the C.A.N report. Nozzle toff to everybody. I've got a new guest on with us tonight. It's Rick Bova. I'm excited to have him on. He is a strong firefighter and a great person out of the Detroit suburb area. And I'm pumped to have you on today. Ricky, thank you so much for being on the show with me tonight.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for this opportunity. Really appreciate what you're doing for the fire service, the platform where you're getting nobodies like me to come on your show and tell my story and tell my passion of the fire service. It's great. I think we need more of this. There's people out there who say, "Oh, there's too many fire podcasts." Nonsense. We need more of this.
Yeah, bro.
Share their passions and share their stories and share their loves for the job.
Yeah, I love that. That's great, dude. That's what it's all about. That's what I was inspired to do. And you reached out to me just to give me props, and we just started talking, and everything that you had said was spot on. And your story is great, and I wanted to get you on here. A little history of Rick. Rick Bova is a 33-year-old from the suburb Detroit, currently a firefighter paramedic with the Southfield Fire Department. He has currently a firefighter paramedic, and he has been with them for the past 6 years, 9 years total of structural firefighter experience, 7 full-time, 2 volunteer for years, basic fire academy, and advanced fire training instructor at the local community college. Rick received his bachelor's in fire science at Lake Superior State University in 2013. He has been working in various fire service related jobs since 2013, in addition to a structural firefighter such as a wildland firefighter with the U.S. Forest Service, as well as a few years dealing with fire prevention and protection. Rick is married to his wonderful wife, Renee, for 4 years. They welcomed their first child into the world just over a month ago. Congratulations. A beautiful baby girl. His hobbies center a lot around the study of the fire service, but others include traveling the world with his wife, which probably won't be happening that much anymore, and physical exercise combined with mental fitness. He has completed various races, including 3 full marathons, Iron triathlon, as well as 100-mile ultramarathon. Wow, bro. That's a lot. I can't even say it. That's so much. It's a mouthful for me. That is a lot of exercising. That is super cool. Well, Rick, man, I appreciate you being on here. This is going to be a cool conversation that we're going to have together. Let's get it started. So, how did you get into this?
Man, if I'm going to be straight up with you, every little boy's dream is to be a fireman. That was my dream, and I never let go of it. As I grew up, I explored some other job, opportunities or some options, career fairs through high school, placement tests for what job you should do, and it all circled back to the fire service. And I kind of just bit the bullet. I really didn't know for certain what I wanted to do coming out of high school, but as my senior year progressed, it took me back into that mentality of being a fireman. And just like so many, man, when 9/11 happened, I was 10 years old, right? So couldn't really grasp the whole situation, the gravity of what had happened, but seeing the things that happened over the course of the next days, months, years after 9/11, how this community came together, how firemen, police officers, EMS workers risked their lives working at the towers and are paying the consequences years after, it kind of solidified it for me. So that's kind of what punched the stamp, and I kind of followed that path. When I got out of high school, there was one college in the state that was accredited for fire science, and that was Lake Superior State University. I actually found out from one of my fellow classmates who was going there. And I said, I'm in. Punched the ticket. The first time I visited the campus was for my orientation. This is what I want to do. I'm sold on it. And yeah, that's what just got it started. And I could never have imagined where that decision would have taken me. I'd be sitting in this chair today, and I would have gotten the opportunity to do the things that I've gotten to do throughout the course of really my very short career so far.
That's awesome. That's a great story. You definitely have the passion for it. I could tell I can hear it, in the way you tell your background and the conversations we've had. You really love to live the fire life, and even as you're still young into the service and still have so much energy for it, which is great. Some people I think are a little hesitant or reluctant, thinking they don't have enough years in yet to start something like the projects that you have, and having a strong voice for it. Some people think that, well, I don't have 10 yet, like I can't talk about anything yet, and you're doing it. And I could tell you have such passion for it, which is commendable. I think it's great to hear it. So tell me about the Southfield Fire Department. You said you're a suburb of Detroit. How close are you to Detroit?
So everybody knows the movie 8 Mile with Eminem, right? Came out a number of years ago. So 8 Mile is the northern border of Detroit that stretches from the east end to the west end, covers two of the borders of the Metro Detroit area, as we call it, county-wise. Southfield sits right on the northwest border of Detroit. So right on the north side of 8 Mile, you enter my community. I believe 26-ish square miles. We have right around 75,000 residents, I believe. Department-wise, our manpower right now is sitting right around 100, minimum daily staffing of 24. 5 stations. We run transporting ALS, 5 transporting ALS units. Last year, we broke a record of just short of 16,500 runs. So we are averaging right around 16,000. We're not going to get to the record this year. We're a little short, but about 16,000 has been our average, and it's slowly increasing. I think this is one of the first years we're not going to break a record since I've been there. So the call volume is definitely increasing. It's a great department, man. Like I said, we do transporting EMS, hazmat, tech rescue. We are one of the few departments in the area that run a tactical EMS program, which I was fortunate enough to be one of the founding members of a number of years ago. So
when you say the tactical EMS, is that you meaning SWAT?
SWAT, yes. SWAT, essentially a SWAT medic. So we are embedded with the police department. When they do SWAT call outs, we will try to get at least a minimum of 1 medic to go with the team to operate, in case something were to go down, which is pretty cool because it really strengthens the relationship between police and fire that much more.
So you say, I see here, you're the assistant director of your hazmat team. And so you're doing that, and you're a SWAT medic as well?
Correct.
Wow. Yep. That's cool, man. We're pretty heavy in our department as well with doing the active shooter program. And in New Hampshire, we do have a SWAT medic program as well. One of our guys from Hooks at Fire, he is one of the lead people for that. And his name is Joe Stalker, and he does the SWAT medic program for New Hampshire. So that's cool. It's a lot to take on, man. You're doing a lot. And now
definitely a lot.
Having a new kid, is that kind of affecting anything yet, do you think? I mean, because you're assistant director of the hazmat team, you're doing tech rescue team member, you're the honor guard member, you're a trained peer support member, you're doing the SWAT medic. That is a lot, brother. That is a lot to take on. So how are you managing all of that?
Man, you just take it in stride. You just take it one day at a time, right? And when I got into all these teams, I was young, eager, full of piss and vinegar, whatever you want to call it, right? I wanted to be involved. My thought process was, the more I'm involved, the more I'm going to know, right? Something like hazmat and tech rescue, those events don't come up that often. So I wanted to be a part of those teams so I could have the knowledge, have the skill set, have a little bit of experience for when those calls did come knocking, right? I always take pride on being one of the guys that people can turn to in a situation like that. And everybody, I get shit all the time for being on the hazmat team, nerd, this and that, being in the position.
I'm on the hazmat team too.
Nerd. Being in the position that I'm in, like when I had 2 or 3 years on the job, we had, you couldn't draw this up. We had 2 hazmat incidents within our city within about 20 days of each other. And I was running the hazmat branch. I was a hazmat branch director, responding directly to the battalion chief of 20 years. Right, it was filtering right through me. I had more experienced hazmat guys on the team, but from my position and my level of training, I was the one to be put in the leadership role. It was a lot to take on, but like I said, when I was young, I just wanted to be involved, and you just take it a day at a time. Having a newborn, having a baby has definitely put things into perspective. People always tell you, man, like, it's going to be the coolest thing you ever do. And, you're just like, all right, yeah, whatever. But when that baby's actually here and you're actually holding that baby and taking care of that baby and watching it smile and cry and do all the things that it does, it takes it into perspective. So I was fortunate to have about a month off of work just to take a step back, just to reset everything and make sure that, like it always has been, family always comes first.
Yeah, man. Family, it's definitely important to make sure that you keep that should be on the forefront of everyone's brain, is that family is definitely first. Because when this job is done, that's who you're going to have when it's all said and done. They're there waiting for you to come home, and they're going
100%.
to take care of you. Yeah, man.
And it don't stop when you get home either. It doesn't
Nope,
stop.
nope. Yeah, and then when of course, then you have grandkids, and if you spend your whole time working, hopefully, right, you get grandkids in the future, and if you spend your whole time working, those grandkids aren't going to know who you are, and
Right.
then you're going to be an old man sitting at home alone, because honestly, the fire service goes on without us. Then they're not going to come knocking on our door wanting us to get on the truck with them anymore. And then you go to the stations, like I said before, and you're gonna knock on that door, and no one's gonna know who you are. And then you're gonna wish your kids were around. You're gonna wish your grandkids were around. But if you don't spend that time with them, they're gonna be too busy for you, just like you were.
Yeah, 100%, man.
I've learned it the hard way. My kids still love me and they still want me around. So I have 15-year-old girls, and but they're 15. So right now they don't really need dad. I'm literally just I'm an ATM, I'm an Uber, and I'm a DoorDash.
I mean,
That's how I look at it right now.
Believe me, dude, over the course of my relationship with my wife over the years, and she's been with me the whole time I've been in the fire service, which is a blessing. It's definitely caused some ripples at home, just with me wanting to be so involved and me spending so much time away from home. There was portions of my life where I definitely looking back now was investing more into the fire service than I was my relationship, right? And I paid the consequences for it, right? And it's all about balance, right? It's all about having your healthy share, but like remembering what's important to you at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be an end, and I don't want to think about it. And I'm sure you don't want to think about it. There's going to be an end of our careers, right? Where we hang up our helmets, or we hang up teaching, or whatever we do down the road, and the fire service is just going to move on, right? And
yeah, brother.
At the end of the day, your family, your friends, your loved ones, those are going to be the ones that are there with you for the rest of your life. So investing in those relationships now, having good balance and good priorities, I believe, and maybe I'm young and naive, but will hopefully pay off in the long run.
No, you're not naive in saying that. You're absolutely 100% correct on that. So you, speaking of health, you said you had some health issues prior to joining the service. It sounded like it was pretty serious stuff. What did you have going on with that?
So long story, buckle in. And I haven't really shared this with anybody really other than my family and really close friends. And it's not a big deal. I'm coming on this platform and spewing it out to the world because, to be honest with you, how I've progressed from it day to day now at this point in my life, like I barely think about it because it's kind of an afterthought. But I'll take you back to when it all started. I was in the 8th grade, 15 years old, I believe I was, 14 or 15 years old. And man, I remember it really distinctly one day. Man, I'm sitting on the family computer, probably screwing around on AOL Instant Messenger, messaging some girls in a futile attempt or something. And I just remember like all the joints in my body just were aching, right? Like not like a deathly pain, but just something just wasn't right. And that's the first time I noticed it. And kind of as the week progressed, like I didn't go to school the next day. It got pretty bad overnight, or the point where like I don't feel right. I'm going to sell this to my parents. Like I'm not feeling good and we're not going to school today. So as it progressed through the week, man, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse to the point where like walking and moving around was not impossible, man, but it started causing excruciating pain. Like I felt like I had the body of a 90-year-old. So at the time we started visiting doctors. I think we started with my primary care, obviously, and they referred us down to Children's Hospital of Michigan in Detroit, which we're very blessed. One of the best pediatric hospitals in the country is right in our backyard. So they referred me down to a neurologist there, underwent some testing, underwent MRIs, all that stuff. They, stuck the needles all over your skin to check your reflexes and stuff. All that stuff was really inconclusive. And I remember being a 15-year-old and like I had to go in the MRI tube completely because they were doing a full body scan of me for the better part of like 2 hours. And it wasn't the greatest experience in the world being a 15-year-old trapped in that little tube. But
yeah. And the noises that the MRI does too. That's freaky.
That was the first time I ever had any exposure to that. And I was like, all right, chill out. You're okay. Like, trying to talk myself off the ledge as a kid, essentially. I mean, getting back to that, the neurologist didn't find anything, which was really aggravating for me. And I know more so for my parents because, I mean, they don't want to see their kid, their firstborn, going through whatever I'm going through. So the neurologist referred me some more doctors. We kept going. Finally, we went to a rheumatologist and they did some blood work. They did some testing and they're like, dude, you have arthritis. And I'm like, arthritis? Like, isn't that something like you get when you're old and like decrepit and stuff? Like, no offense, but like, isn't that something you get
Thank you.
later on in life? you know? And I said, yeah, generally it is. But what you have is a form of arthritis called psoriatic arthritis. So psoriasis, the disease of the skin, combined some medical combination with arthritis. It affected and still affects to this day every single one of my joints in my body. It's not isolated to the hands, to the knees, to the neck, or anything. It's fingers, toes, every single joint in the body. So once they were able to identify that, I started a medication regimen, and I've been on like a very low dose of medication to control it since, and I've been good. You know, it took probably a couple years to finally figure out like which medication dose is working best for me, but we did. But even still to this day, man, like I was just doing burpees at the gym the other day, and like this wrist is hurting now, just cramping a little bit. And I know what that pain feels like. It takes me back to when I was 15 years old sitting on the computer. Like I remember this pain, but it's just kind of something that I've learned to deal with, and I've learned to not let it limit myself because it did for a long time. You know, being in 8th grade, I was going right into high school. I played football in middle school. I was all ready to go do high school football, you know, take on that next chapter of my life. And the doctors told me like, hey, dude, you should probably lay off the sports. Like, I have no doubt you probably could play, but we just don't want to, I don't want to fool with anything, you know, with your joints being more brittle and a little bit weaker than others. I don't want to mess with this. And they gave me a statistic, and I'll probably botch it, but I think it was like 1 out of every 1,000 children my age are diagnosed with this. So a fairly rare condition. So yeah, but that's kind of the story of that. And that kind of derailed like my life physically for a little bit. Especially I was really bummed out about not being able to play football because it was a sport I really enjoyed. Like it was something as you were coming up as a teenager where you could be part of something, be part of that team, right? Just like the fire service, getting that team aspect. And then this happened, right? And I stayed friends with all those guys on the football team, but it kind of wasn't really the same not being in that close bond. So that really, not only physically, but kind of mentally and emotionally put a huge drain on me.
Wow, man. That's, How do you mentally recover from that to continue on with some, like, obviously like in the fire service, you know, was that in the back of your mind when you realized you wanted to do this as a career? Did you think of that? Am I able to do this? Or were you training well before that? Were you training? Because I mean, you did the marathons, you did the ultramarathons, triathlons. Did you think about any of those going into it? And or like, again, your career wise, like, am I going to be able to do this up to retirement? Or am I arthritis going to, you know, creep up again and hinder something?
Well, the biggest question I had going into the whole hiring process was, is this going to be like a disqualifier for me? Like, I didn't know really how much it, you know, how in depth the medical exams were for the fire service. I explored some options with the military, and I know for a fact that what I have is a disqualifier for all branches of the military. Right. Wow. There's no, believe me, I talked to recruiters when I was exploring my options, and they said like you couldn't even go to a doctor and get a pass to go. They won't write it for you just because you have to be on a medication regimen for the rest of your life. So I didn't know how that was going to affect me. I talked to some people in the fire service, and, you know, and they said, you know, it shouldn't be an issue, but I can't tell you for certain. So there was always that leaning over me. So kind of piggybacking into another story, if I will. So after like going through high school, you know, I kind of just put this in the back of my mind. Like I got the medication. I was feeling a little bit better. I picked up a new sport, picked up wrestling of all sports, of all physical sports to play. I wrestled. And for the most part, I felt good. Like I had my limitations. I had my days. And believe me, I wasn't a stud athlete by any means, but it was something to get me back out, get me physically moving, and get that bond and that teamwork aspect again. So, but for the most part, going through high school, I lived a rather unhealthy lifestyle. So if it wasn't playing sports, I didn't go to the gym. I ate comfort food, right? To make, you know, whatever the case was, I did not live a very healthy lifestyle. And that went tenfold when I got to college. Everybody jokes about like the freshman 15, putting on 15 pounds your first year because you're exposed to all the cafeteria food and drinking and stuff. And Mike, I'm not shitting you. It wasn't the freshman 15 for me. It was a freshman 50.
Wow,
I put on
dude.
50 pounds between graduating high school and the end of my freshman year in college. I was 265 pounds ish back then. And the year after that this happened, that I kind of ballooned up to this, I was scheduled to go to the fire academy. So through my Bachelor of Science program at Lake Superior State, they put on a full semester long fire academy. So it wasn't your traditional 12-week or 16-week or whatever it was. It was broken down into, okay, Fire 1 is going to be the fall semester, and Fire 2, your hands-on stuff, is going to be the spring semester. So I went to class 2 days a week. And dude, I barely made it through the academy. Like, I was sucking down bottles way faster than people. I was a lot slower. I was slower getting my gear on. I was slower masking up. And by the time I did that, I was out of breath to even do the evolution, right? Just because of how out of shape I was. It was, once I finished the fire academy, man, that was a big wake up call, combined with, you know, how lucky I am that I still am able to do this with the disease that I have. It's like, dude, you got to get yourself together, man. You are not going to make a 20, 25, 30-year career like this. Right. No. And very rarely, I'm sure you see it, very, very rarely do we see people leave the fire service in better shape than they started. Very, very rarely. Because when you think about it, when it boils right down to it, we have a rather sedentary job. You know, we go out and we lift some patients up and we fight a fire every now and then. But what do we do? What do we do when we do our training, right? We do our training, we do our truck checks, but what do we do the rest of the time?
We sit on the Life Sucker 1000.
We kind of just chill out, right? And it's for kind of our own good to be ready to go when those emergencies start. But man, if you're leading a healthy, unhealthy lifestyle in the job, you're going to walk out in worse shape than when you started. So I took all of that, I kind of funneled that in and started the year after the fire academy, started getting serious about working out. And man, I found a program, started eating right, which is really hard at a college cafeteria, by the way. Started eating right. And man, I dropped 30 pounds in 12 weeks. People were noticing. And from March of 2012, I have never looked back since.
Man, that's an excellent journey, bro. That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
That is amazing to drop that weight.
Yeah.
That's not easy. I love that, because your goal is to be the fittest firefighter that you can be, and to have a longevity in your career. Those are what I think keep a lot of people going. And that's, you know, it's always on the front part of their mind, that they want to continue to do this job. They don't want to go out on injury. They don't want to go out because of having cardiac issues or knee issues, or, you know, it's important that you keep up that physical, that fitness to keep going. And that's why we got into fire services. You know, we want to help others and we want to have fun. And that's, you know, why ultimately people get in shape is when they're joining the fire service, they know they got to be in good physical condition to pass those tests or to go through the academy. I love the fact that we have the academies. I love the fact that we have a physical fitness standard to get into the service, because not everyone's going to do this job. And if you take someone who doesn't take the job or the health seriously, they took away those standards, we would have nothing but blobs in our service. And you're going to come to the front steps to somebody's house and you'll be out of breath before you even make it to the door. So it's important.
Yeah. One of my passions, like, is obviously physical fitness. Like, and if you want, I can elaborate on the marathons and stuff and how that was born, because that's a completely separate thing. But I wrote my senior paper in college, my senior thesis, on physical fitness trends in the fire service, on how, and basically the summary of it was how we have to meet all these physical fitness standards, pass medical physicals, do the CPAT or whatever your equivalent is to get hired. But at least in Michigan and in my department, there is no physical fitness standards that you have to meet as you progress through your career. So if you can pass the CPAT on day one, you can theoretically let yourself go, right? As long as you can maintain some sort of minimal function to do the job and stay employed. Doesn't mean you have to be, you know, good at it. Just it means you have to be able to perform at a minimum level. And we know in this job that performing at a minimal level is going to get somebody hurt or it's going to get somebody killed. And it's only a matter of time. This job is a job where I firmly believe that we have to invest ourselves most physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually to go above and beyond. Minimum standards do not cut it in the fire service.
Nailed it, man. Absolutely. You see, mic drop on that one. You nailed it on that. That's good. So how did you get into the triathlon and the marathons and all those?
So, man, I was on probation on my first full-time department. And funny story about that, it was a safer grant job. So I knew going into that employment that I was going to get laid off. Like we all knew that, but they were cool, man. They gave us time off on probation to go do interviews and go do whatever for next job. So I rolled actually from one probation, 10 months into another probation. So I always joke like I had a 22-month probation. But I was on probation in my previous department, and I had a friend who was a longtime friend who was running the Detroit Marathon, and it was her first full marathon, and she was kind of hounding me like, do the half, at least do the half, just run the half with me, and then, you know, I'll go on my own. And the cool thing about Detroit is, I don't know how much you know, but like we share an international border with Canada, right to the south. It's the only place in the United States where Canada is actually south of the United States. But the marathon, it starts in Detroit, you run a couple miles, and then it goes over the bridge into Canada. You run like 3 or 4 miles through downtown Windsor, Ontario, and then cross back through the tunnel into Detroit and finish the race there. So it's really cool. So she was hounding me about doing the half. And I'm like, all right, screw it. I'll do it. So I trained for it. I ran a really good time. I think it was like an hour and 42 minutes or something. And it wasn't bad for a kid who was running in basketball shorts and worn out workout shoes. So like a bucket list of mine for years was like, I wanted to do a full marathon. Like even if it meant I had to walk all 26.2 miles, I would do it. I'm just like, I want to say that I completed a full marathon. So I thought about it at the point I was at, and this was like late 2018. And I said, you know what, I'm already halfway there. You might as well sign up and let's go for it. So a few months later, I ended up running a pretty good time in a marathon, signed up to do the Detroit one, the full marathon the following year. I got like 6 other guys from work to actually do it with me. We made t-shirts, like, you know, the Run DMC logo. We said run SFD on it. We sold shirts for charity. It was a lot of fun. And I ended up missing my goal time by 19 seconds, which I was like, little infuriated about, but like not so much because I'm thinking back like, man, where could I have made up that 19 seconds? From there, dude, I was hooked. The next year, COVID year, 2020, I was supposed to do a half IRONMAN triathlon, which is a total of 70.3 miles of swimming, biking, and running. Everything got canceled the year of COVID. So I'm like, I just trained for 4 or 5 months to do like this triathlon. I'm going to do it. So we went out to a park and my wife came along with me and I did the damn thing myself.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm not gonna let this training go to waste.
Wow,
and then
man,
from there,
I
thought it was dead. I thought that bug was dead. But the next year, I signed up for the full Ironman triathlon, which for those who don't know, it's 140.6 miles. It's 2.4 miles of swimming, 112 miles of biking, and finishing with a full marathon back to back to back. I completed that.
You finished the whole thing?
I completed that in 12 hours, 31 minutes, and 40 seconds.
I don't even like to drive 12 hours.
That's what people were saying. Like, I don't even want to drive over 100 miles.
Right? Oh, no way.
That was the training and all that stuff was probably the hardest part of all that, just because of all the hours and the miles you had to spend by yourself just to leading up to one day. But the race itself was great. Again, I thought that was done right there. And in my mentality, like if you ask anybody, he's got this addictive mentality where he wants to push himself above and beyond and see what his limits are. As far as like in the running community goes, distance running, really, they consider a 5K a distance event. So you build up from that. So 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and then everybody's familiar with the marathon. That's usually like for an amateur runner, that's kind of the pinnacle. 26.2 miles is a long, long way. And I stand behind that. That still is the hardest physical endurance event I've ever done because I can push myself and run for 3.5 hours at 26.2 miles. It's hard. But once you go beyond that, you start talking about the ultramarathon, which starts 31 miles is the 50K. There's 100K, 50 milers. And then the pinnacle, even for ultra runners, is the 100. It's like the gold standard for ultra running. And I just like, you know what?
So you have to have a good mental endurance as well, not just physical, but
you
to
have
mentally
to
train yourself.
And what I do, man, is for these races, I just sign up. I just sign up and put it on the calendar and put it on the docket. Like, this is my goal. How I'm going to get to that goal, I have no fucking idea. But I'm gonna figure it out. And you learn so much about yourself throughout, or at least I learned so much about myself throughout that journey of just getting to the race. Right.
That's impressive, man.
I remember I wrote all this stuff down. I spent a total of like over 3 days of cumulative running, like 75 hours or something like that training. I ran 850 miles of training for the 100-mile race. And it was one of the worst days of my life, Mike. That race was one of the hardest things mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything that I have ever done.
I have no doubt, man. That is, like I said, like I just think of the mental side of it, because once you start physically breaking down or doubting yourself, that's where your brain has to kick in. You have to physically, mentally train yourself to not give up, whether
Yep.
your legs start cramping or, you're hungry or your just body is the whole package is starting to fail on you. Your brain's got to tell you to keep on going. So that's really like mentally pushing yourself. And I think that helps you, I'm sure, in the fire service world of, whether you're doing your trainings or you're doing some heavy work inside of a fire or something else, and your body's saying, no, I don't want to do this anymore. You got to train your brain to say, nope, you're going to keep on going. We're not done yet. You got to push past that wall. That really helps, I'm sure, to train you to be even better at your job.
It translated immensely over into my job, and not just that, but into my life, right? Because you reach a point in every single race. And unfortunately, in the 100-miler, it came about 50 miles when I started hurting really, really bad. And I have a personal mantra that I've kind of put on myself for all these races. It's just keep going. Just keep going. And it means so much to me. I just recently got it tattooed on my wrist. Just keep going. Forward is a pace. As slow as you may be moving, if it is one painful step, if it is a crawl, forward is a pace. Forward is momentum. Just keep going. When you think you can't do any more, you can. Your body is your body has limitations. Your mind does not. Right. Your mind can drive your body to do things. And I have found the point, believe me, when I say this, I have found the point when exercise becomes unhealthy. I have found it. And when you get to that limit, you got to dig deep, and you got to have something in your brain. And it doesn't just happen overnight, right? It doesn't happen. And I don't mean to toot my own horn or anything, but
you ever listen to Raymond Dorville?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, if you want to hear motivation and you want to talk about someone who can get you going and get in your brain for you to not to quit, it's Raymond. And he does an amazing, there's a clip of him talking to his graduating class for Miami-Dade. And the biggest part of it is that your physical traits will not define you. Your mind will make you do impossible things. Yeah. And that speech that he gives, every time I hear it, it gives me goosebumps. I love that man. Raymond Dorville is the dude, and he's the GOAT. And he is such a motivator. I recommend to anybody who looking for motivation and inspiration to look up Raymond and to look up that speech that he gives. When we see him sometimes, we make fun of him because it starts off with it. They're waiting for you at the door, and he's just yelling. He's yelling at this graduating class, and you could see the passion in his eyes. You can hear it in his voice. And the biggest thing is your physical traits will not define you. And I always think about that. That's what keeps me motivated. If I'm doubting myself in physical fitness or something else, really his speech always hits home. I do an Explorer program, Explorer Academy every summer. We have a lot of kids that try to do the physical fitness side of things. We do physical fitness with them every morning, and some of them are not used to doing it, and they always say, well, I can't do it, or I'm going to give up. And, we always have to train them and tell them that, you're or they'll say, I'm not strong enough. I'm not fast enough. I can't do it. And, I gave them a chance to listen to Raymond talk about that. So I had originally played his speech to them the first year we brought the academy back, and I think the whole class got it. And then the next year I reached out to Raymond and asked him to come up to actually speak with the cadets, and so they can meet him in person and he can give his speech about that drive and that motivation and not doubting yourself. And it really hit home. And just like you said, like, you reach a point where your mind's going to make you do incredible things. You have to listen to that brain of yours to make sure you can keep pushing through. If you start doubting yourself, you are going to fail, but you got to keep pushing past that. And that's exactly it, bro. Like nailing it right on the head is you got to keep pushing. You got to break past that wall. And, doing these triathlons and these marathons that you're doing, that's going to, your wall is already miles away. So, you start hitting that wall, you've already pushed past that structure. You've probably already gone through 3 bottles already and continue to want more because you've built such a great distance for yourself. So that wall is like miles away from you to have to worry about hitting that. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm a big David Goggins follower, right? I mean, that guy does some crazy shit. Like, don't get me wrong, but he has this one saying. He calls it the cookie jar. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the cookie jar, right? Where you put all these things that you've done inside of the metaphoric cookie jar, and when you're going through some shit and you're going through hard times and you're like, I can't take it anymore. You open up that cookie jar and grab some sweets, right? You remind yourself, hey, this is what I've done, right? I've done this. I am a badass. I was able to complete this. Let's take it one step further. And that's, I kind of employ that on some of the people some of our new hires that we train, right? Where we push them when we do engine company work, we push them when we're doing our final drills for the day, and I'll push them and I'll get them working. And there's some people that tell me, I can't keep going. And I say, you can, just go. And they finish the evolution, right? It might not be the greatest, but they finish the evolution. And I pull them aside afterwards and I'm like, you did it. You finished the thing, right? You told me you couldn't. You told me you couldn't do it anymore, and you finished it.
Yeah.
Whatever you found from the point where you wanted to quit to the point you finished, I need you to take that. I need you to harvest it, and I need you to get it to grow, because that is going to take you so far. And it doesn't work every time, right? It doesn't work every time. Your body might reach the max and say, I'm done. I can't physically do this anymore. That's okay, right? We learn from our mistakes. We learn from our failures. And I always tell them, like, sometimes learning how to do something wrong or learning the breaking point of your body is just as good as succeeding, as doing it right, because now you create a mental memory of what the failure feels like and what the mistake feels like, so you don't have to go through it again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing for me, man. My biggest thing is when I'm teaching, is when someone says I don't have any fuel left in my tank, and my reply is, well, was it full to begin with? How do you know what you have in your tank? You came to class ready to go and ready to do work, and you're telling me you have nothing left in the tank. Well, was it full to begin with? Well, you can't gauge that, and if someone, when new hires or, students tell me that, that's usually my answer is, how much fuel did you have to begin with? You can't gauge that. So and that's our job, to keep them going, not to embarrass them and not to yell and scream and tell them they're no good or they're pussies. It's our job to encourage them and motivate. And if we don't push that barrier for ourselves, then we really have no right to tell them, that you can go further if we've never tested ourselves.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
that's, yeah. So it's really important. I love that. Practice what you preach. Absolutely. And that's my biggest thing, is when I get on my soapbox at the academy, and I always tell them, I'm not making you do anything that I haven't done. If I'm going through a maze course, if I make you do it, I've done it. I've gone through the maze course. I've had to drag somebody out of those buildings. I've had to do all the work that you've done. Trust me, I've done it. I wouldn't be here if I haven't done it. So it gives it that buy-in, and, having them see us actually do the work too. I think it's really important. Honestly, the new book, right? The Book of Search. And I was reading the Book of Search that, that instructors should be wearing the gear. Rob Ramirez says it, Mayday Mindset, that when we're teaching, we should be wearing the gear that they're wearing. So when it comes to show them the actual skill, that they're not, either they're learning it for the first time or they're struggling to get it, that we can show them how it's done, and we're not stripped down. We're wearing the same stuff that they are, so they can understand that we're doing the same thing they are. I think that's hard to really sell students or anybody that's trying to learn a new skill when the instructor is wearing jeans and, in a job shirt, and then they slide through a obstacle course, or they pick somebody up and drag them downstairs. Yeah, that's going to be an easy skill for you because you're not wearing air pack and you're not wearing your space suit and everything else. So you're going to have to, as an instructor, they need buy-in. You practice what you preach. And if you're not wearing that gear and you're not actually going to put in that work, well, how is that student really going to believe what you're saying as it being so easy, because you're stripped down to barely nothing and they're wearing that whole spacesuit and got a mask on, and they're busting their ass and sweating their ass off. So yeah.
And it shows to me, being in gear as an instructor shows solidarity with your students. This is a we thing. This is not me and you. This is we. We're here to accomplish a goal together. All right. And I'm going to sweat it out just like you're going to sweat it out. Right. And again, like you said, if I'm not showing you something that I am physically incapable of doing or that I do not want to do, I want to be here. I want to be in this gear, and I want to be getting you to where you need to be.
100%, man. Yeah. So I see here you're heavily involved with your training, your department. You're also one of the leads for your initial engine company operation training for all your new hires. So what is it, your program that you're a part of, or what is it that you initiated to really make that successful?
So when I got into the fire service, I wasn't the person I am today by any means. And nobody is, but where I caught the bug was I went to Nozzle Forward. And this was during COVID, October 2020. I had some good info from some previous coworkers. Like, oh, dude, it's right, 2.5 hour drive. Just go take the class. Changed the way I look at engine company stuff forever.
Yeah, I bet.
The ease of moving hose lines, the fact that we were moving and flowing 2.5-inch hose lines with two people at the end of the day, man, like that, I don't know if you've ever taken it.
No, unfortunately, I never have, and
That
I really
class,
wish I could.
it's wicked, and they will work with you until you want to go home. It's not a, hey, we're cutting this off at 6 p.m. We were out there packing hose and flowing and moving in the dark. Like we could barely see what we were doing, and they were out there with us. Great class. Would highly recommend it to anybody listening. Again, changed the way I completely looked at engine company stuff and the way I looked at really training and the fire service in general. That's when I caught the bug. But anyway, long story short, I took a lot of what I learned in Nozzle Forward, and we made this engine company operations program. So me and one of my other coworkers, who was actually the gentleman I presented at Great Lakes Hot with, and talk about that, we're kind of the co-leads for engine company stuff. We put together this program where I am a big proponent of understanding the why before you get out and do the how. And sometimes for some people right out of the fire academy, I get some pretty blank stares with some of the stuff that we're discussing. Like I'm telling them, this is not something you are consciously thinking while you're moving down a dark hallway flowing water, but these are the benchmarks, right? We want to cool the space, right? We want to look for lift. You want water coming back down on you. Stuff like that. Just breaking down every position on the hose team, what everybody's responsible for, and your benchmarks, like knowing your rig. Start step one. You can't be a good pipeman or good nozzleman if you don't know what the hell is on your engine, right? You need to know the lengths of your hose, the friction loss in your hose, the nozzle types you have, your tank capacity, your pump capacity. You need to know all of that before you even touch a nozzle, right? I am a very big proponent of that because you need to understand what you're working with and the limitations of your equipment. So knowing your equipment, we spend a lot of time on knowing our hose loads. So in Southfield, we run pre-connected flat loads. And then we also have what we call a Detroit bundle, which was based off of what Detroit ran. It is 150 feet of 1.75 inch. 50 of that is 100 of that is in like a modified Minuteman bundle. And then the other 50 is a reverse horseshoe. You pull that off, it's attached to a water thief. Detroit, if you watch videos of Detroit, you'll see them tossing their bundles off and they reverse lay absolutely everything. So it's kind of a modification of how Detroit runs. Again, we thought we would be playing with Detroit being so close back in the day a lot more than we never do. So, but it works for us. So we teach them how to properly deploy that. Once we're good with that, we'll move on. Like, all right, now you know your rig. Now you know how to get the hose off the rig and how to properly set it up before you call for water. Let's start the process of the hose team positions. Let's move line with 1, 2, let's move with 3, and then let's open the bail. Let's start working some nozzle techniques. Let's slow everything down. Like one thing I learned out of Nozzle Forward is more like Marvin Gaye and less like Metallica. And as the years go on, the blanker the stares get when I mention Marvin Gaye. So during the break, we got to usually play a little Marvin Gaye. So I know everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, man, that's kind of how we break it down. We were allotted an 8-hour day to come in and train with these new hires. Get sweaty, get soaked. We love it.
How long is that for?
You talk
like
about
how many days?
My portion of it?
Yeah.
We
like
just do
one day, just 8 hours, just one day.
One day, 8 hours. So it's a 5 day a week, 3 weeks on 40s for our new hires. So we get them kind of exposed to everything. And I would tell them, like, I know we went into a lot today, but believe me, this is only dipping our big toes in the waters, in the glorious fountain of engine company work. All right. Yeah. This is just giving you a base. So when you go to your stations and you want to train with your crews and your crews want to train with you, they know that you know step one or letter A or however you want to describe it. And we do that with everything. We'll do search, we'll do VES, we'll do ladders, we'll do patient assessment with EMS, we'll do RIT, we'll do all that stuff. And if logistics and resources allow, we'll get in at the end of their 40-hour training period and we'll burn with them. And we'll put them on a hose line. We'll have them do searches in live fire conditions just to see what they learn, adding that environmental stress to the physical stress they're already working through.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a 3-week recruit class that you have.
Yep.
That we have in our department. We have approximately 2 weeks right now. We'd love to extend it for a 3-week, but it's something I love to do. I actually never used to be an engine guy. I used to hate doing engine work. I hated humping hose line. When I first started in the fire academy, it was one of the things I hated the most. And when I started on my call department, I honestly hated having to, because I didn't know how to do it, right? I didn't know the proper techniques of moving a hose. And in my department I was on at the time, they never really showed me good technique. And I was pretty fortunate when I started my fire academy 12 years ago. I had Dave Quick as one of our fire instructors for moving hose. And this was quite some time ago. And I honestly, he used to irritate the shit out of me how much he used to love moving hose. I'm like, I hate this guy. I hate moving hose. It was so physically demanding because I had never learned the proper mechanics. And Dave was showing me some really good technique and how to move better and not muscle the hose. And that was my biggest problem, is I was always muscling it. Back in the day, that's all I ever did was lift weights. So I just would bench press a bunch and curl a bunch of weight to get my beach muscles up. And so I never really had the physical endurance part, right? And then here comes Quick, and he's showing me he's not a big dude, but man, he can move hose really fast and really well. And I was getting jealous, but then he took the time to break it down and show me how it's done. And unfortunately, we didn't have a whole lot of time with him, but that was really beneficial to have someone like that who loved the craft of engine work, who knew what he was talking about, and could show you how to move hose without killing yourself. And you see a lot of engine guys, right? They're not these big muscle bound dudes. These are skinny guys. These are fit dudes who've worked to, just like you, right? Like physically have prepared yourself to make sure you know how far away that wall is before you have to bust into it, and get yourself mentally prepared. But moving your body in better ways, and knowing that you don't have to muscle a hose line where there's better technique. And I wish, like that, like you said, your recruit class for your guys is, only 8 hours. So you're only just dipping that one toe into that huge pond that we could spend days on. And you wish you could just have like 2 weeks of doing engine work, because like you said, there is so much more. It's so much more than just pulling a hose too.
Oh yeah.
There's a crap load that goes along with it. But of course, that's something that their officers get to train with them on and get to know them better, and incorporate their ideas and their techniques. So it's cool that you get to have at least 8 hours with them. Tomorrow, actually, I'm doing the same thing with my department. We have 2 guys that we're bringing on, and they're really green to the fire service, and we're going up to our fire academy, and we get to spend about 8 hours doing hose evolutions, and they get to have a live burn with us, and we're going to do the crawl, walk, run method of, this is what the hose is, this is what the nozzle is, this is how you pull it off the truck, this is now how you flake it out in front of the building, this is all the things that we love to do and talk about. I get to do it tomorrow for about 8 hours.
Hell yeah. Believe me, I would love to do, let's just pull line all day for 8 hours, and let's flow water for 8 hours, and then let's move through the building for 8 hours. But the cool thing about our recruit phase, it gives opportunity to other members of the department to get out and instruct, right? It gives them an opportunity. Like I'm the engine guy, but I got a buddy he's the RIT guy, right? I got another buddy, he's the search and the VES guy. I got another buddy who familiarizes them with pump operations and all this stuff. So it gives other members of the department who might be looking for an opportunity to participate or maybe take that step towards instructing, give them kind of an informal platform where they can get out and start exploring those options. So it's great. As much as I'd like to hog it and do it all myself, it is great for teamwork.
I'm kind of the same way. I do. I mean, I'm the same way, because I love it all. I'll do it all. Every time they reach out to me and they ask me what I would love to do, I just tell them whatever you want me to do. I'll do all of it. Like, it's just so much fun. I love being around people who want to learn and train with and pull lines, and it's exciting. It's exciting when people get it. Like, you're showing them a new skill set and they struggle with it, and then they do it, and you keep seeing them do repetitions over and over again the way you taught it. It's a great feeling to have when they get it, especially in your own departments, and your officers give you that buy-in, and they see like, oh yeah, I got a good guy in my truck. Like he can teach these new guys, and it's nice to have that backing of your department and faith from your officers.
Oh yeah,
so you did mention. Yep, go ahead.
It is so important for our members. I mean, we have a dedicated truck company in my department, but 4 engines and a truck essentially. And we break that down with ambulances and stuff like that. But we're not waiting around as a first 2 engine company for a truck to come do forcible entry or throw ladders or do a search, right? So we need to be well-versed on absolutely every aspect of this job, because we may be called upon to do it when we arrive on scene by ourselves.
Absolutely, man. Like, I guess if you're like a huge department, right, where you've got just a crap load of dudes, yeah, you might just have that one responsibility, and that's your job, is to stretch a line and go to the door, because the door's already going to be open. But for me, and it sounds like for you the same way. Like we ride 3 on a truck, and the closest station might be on a medical call because we cross staff our other stations. We have 4 stations, so one of our trucks could be on a medical call, so that ladder truck might be out of commission because they're on the ambulance. That's going to be up to us. And when we get there, we're not waiting for somebody else to open a door. It's not already going to be open. We have to know how to do all of it. And I think for the most part, everybody is usually pretty good about making sure they know all aspects of the job. I can't imagine a firefighter just being like, nope, I'm only doing truck work. I only know how to open a roof, and that's going to be it for me. I think since we love the job so much that we want to learn all of it except for hazmat.
Somebody's got to do it.
See what I did there?
I threw the jab in. Wouldn't be appropriate if you didn't.
So I see that you co-presented at the lecture for the Great Lakes Hot Fire Conference in 2024, Them versus Us. What was that about?
Man, so like we were talking before the show, me and one of my coworkers, his name is Charles Castley, we just put a presentation together and we submitted. They were looking for instructors for the first day from Michigan to kind of highlight some of the local talent, if you will. And we work together on the engine stuff. We do a lot of new hire training. We do a lot of informal training with our shifts and our crews. So we're just like, why don't we throw something out there and just see what happens, right? We didn't really expect anything because we got guys like Frank Lieb and Cody Trestrail and all these guys who are presenting in the days following, right? There's no way they're going to pick us, and they picked us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was surprising, but I'm like, all right, cool. Let's get to work. We had an outline and we spent a couple months putting together, and basically Them versus Us, exactly how the name entitles. Where is the priority in the fire service? Over the last, and I think it's getting better now, but over probably the last 20 to 25 years, we've had a lot of leaders in the research and the talking I've been doing to people. I've had a lot of leaders in the fire service that have transitioned to this risk adverse kind of mentality, right? Where firefighter safety comes first, right? And you and I and the people who listen to this and the people who are students of the game know that our citizens, the ones that we swore to protect, they come first, right? And that doesn't mean we disregard our own safety. Safety is not something that we just throw out the window, because if we can't be safe, we can't do our job for them. Safety doesn't come through things like policies and directives and 2 in, 2 out and clean cab and all this other stuff that I can go on and on and on about. Safety comes from training. Safety comes from repetitive, real world, what I call mental mileage reps. You get those reps in physically and mentally. That's where the safety comes. The better that you can do a task, in my opinion, the safer that you can be. So, man, we dove into all sorts of stuff, and we talked about cultures. We talked about how cultures affect the fire service down to boots on the ground level, because culture is our identity. Culture is who we are. Culture makes the fire service part of society. And we have all these things in the American fire service that we all love. The culture of the American fire service, like the brotherhood, the shit that goes on at the kitchen table, right? I think default aggressiveness, service before self, those are all things that encompass the culture of the American fire service. And that's great under a huge umbrella. But now we start going down to individual departments, right? What is the culture at an individual department? And we examine that a little bit. And I think the culture from an individual department actually comes from and I'm not going to call them leaders. I'm going to call them the top brass, because we know that leaders come at every level. And just because you wear a bunch of bugles and a shiny white shirt and gold badge doesn't make you a leader. So, but whatever that administration, though, that top brass projects, that is the projected culture within the department. So is it aggressive fire attack? Is it aggressive search? Is it an aggressive mentality? Or are things like paperwork and discipline and X, Y, and Z computer programs, are those things valued more than our mission? Right. And it doesn't matter what mission statements say and what core values say. I've read a bunch of them. And if you're not projecting what those mission statements say, that's not the culture of your department. Right.
I think with mission statements and vision statements and all that, they sound great in theory, like you just said, but the guys didn't come up with that, right? It's not like you took a core group of guys who are really into the job and said, hey, this is going to be my mission statement. I definitely think we should adhere to it, and celebrate our department and looking into that. But when it comes to getting on that truck and then going to the scene, am I going to remember our vision statement? No. Am I going to remember the mission statement? No. I'm going to remember the oath I took that I swore to protect the people in the community that I serve in. And that means going into a structure that's unsafe for us to take them out and give them a fighting chance to be back with their family. That's the
Right.
oath I swore to take. And I know a lot of departments, that's their biggest thing. They plaster their vision statement and mission statements on the wall, and it's fine and dandy, but a lot of guys don't really think about that because that's not what they signed up for in a way. It might sound callous, I guess, but that's not at our core beliefs. Because some of those vision statements are pretty blanket, right? They're bland and they're cookie cutter, and it sounds really good to the town administrator or the city mayor or whomever the chiefs and our top brass have to answer to. And I know a lot of departments try to incorporate a new vision statement with their guys, like, hey, we need a new one. Like, we want you to come up with it. And some of them really good, but you could tell the ones that are pretty vanilla, right? And they sound good, and so they're plastered up there, and nobody, you ask someone to recite it and nobody can remember it because their probation's over. When
Right.
you're on probation and it's in your manual or something, what is our core statement or what is our vision statement? I mean, you got core statement, mission statements, you've got the vision statements. Like, how many statements do we need to remember? I think the biggest thing we need to remember is why we're doing this job. And like you said, is it default aggression, not aggression, but being aggressive on the fire grounds, or whether it's patient care or go into a motor vehicle accident. I think all of that aggressive is good, as long as you said we want to make sure we're safe, and
100%.
you can still be aggressive and you can still be safe, but not having to think to yourself, well, wait, what did our vision statement say, or what did our mission statement say? Or that kind of goes out the window when it comes to do that job.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that kind of leads me to what I was going to say next, is like breaking down the cultures a little bit. You got your subcultures and your microcultures at your stations, your shifts, and your crews, right? And if something is not clearly projected from the top, you're going to have your subcultures and microcultures start doing things their own way. And I'm a firm believer that most all firefighters, boots on the ground firefighters, want to do the best for the citizens and want to do the best for themselves. So they're going to figure out something without any clear direction. They're going to figure out something that works for our citizens and works for them. Problem lying there is now you have people doing things a couple steps different as you're looking from crew to crew and shift to shift. And I'm not saying every crew's got to be like the crew next door to them, right? That's what makes it unique. That's what makes the fire service unique. But like in a suburban department, we shouldn't be that far off with how we operate with things, right? And I think that breakdown happens when you don't have that clearly defined culture from the top. So we hit that one pretty hard in our presentation. Some other stuff we talked about was just preparation, things that you can do to get yourself ready. And it's not even tough stuff, like just kind of checking. I call it doing a door check, right? I have a big red door in the back of my firehouse. And when I walk into that door, right, that is my check to try to leave whatever is bothering me on the outside and the outside of that big red door, right? It's not I'm not saying that's completely possible, right? I know people have stuff going on at home and stuff going on in their personal lives that they just can't check at the door. But that is my reminder, looking at that big red door, walking in, seeing the lockers, seeing the gear on the floor, seeing the fire trucks, that this next 24 hours is dedicated to the citizens, right? It's dedicated to the citizens so I can do the best job for them, so we can do the best job for ourselves, so I can go walk out the big red door the next day and go home to my family. Something as
and also
mind right.
I love it, man. That's great. And I think you nailed it. And I also think that you walk out the door to your family, but I think also to walking out that door and be proud of the job that you just did for that 24 hours,
Absolutely.
right? Like you walked out and went, I gave that tour the best that I could do.
And some days it's 100%, and some days it's not. But whatever.
Sure. I mean, you're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days, right, bro? And I think that it's so important that you walked away from your shift feeling good about what you did for that day. If it's a slow shift, it's a slow shift. But if you know you're in the right mindset and you driving home and went, yeah, man, that was good. Like, I'm happy how I teched that call, or, that train went really well. And instead of being pissed off and angry about what the wife said before you left, or a text message you got, or like my wife is she's pretty dialed in where she knows not to call or text me a whole lot. And we've always been that way. We've always had that. She knows, like, I'm at work unless something big happens. Like, it's funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. Like, my dog had passed away just like maybe a month ago, and it was unexpected. She was at home, I was on shift, and she called me at 6 a.m. while I was on shift. It was the next day, so I was getting ready to leave pretty soon. And my phone rang, and I said to my officer, I went, "This can't be good." She wouldn't be calling me at 6 a.m. if something's not good. And the dog had literally just died. And they were really good about it, because so my shift ended at 7:45. It was 6 a.m. and my officer said, "You need to go home. You need to deal with this." I'm like, no, I'll stay. He's like, no. I'm telling you, you got to go home and you got to deal with life that's going on. Because just like we said, right? Like, how good am I going to be with the public? Or if something big happens, am I going to be mentally fit to handle that situation? Or am I going to be pissed off? Or am I going to have some kind of, or am I going to be sad? Or am I going to be depressed? And, what mental mindset am I going to be? Probably not my best. And the community doesn't care that my dog died. If I'm sitting there and go, well, I'm attacking a patient who's, whatever the situation may be, and I'm not giving them my all, and go, well, I'm sorry, my dog just died, and I'm here with you now, and now I'm trying to struggle. They don't care. They're not going to want to hear that. They want to make sure that I'm fully focused on them. So I want to walk out that door, and when I drive home, I want to smile and go, that was a good shift. I did really good today. That whether the extrication or a structure fire or whatever the moment might be, that I was mentally prepared to give that 24-hour shift everything that they want me to do.
Oh, absolutely, man. And it goes without saying too that, some people bring that stuff into work. Like, they just show up because, they need the paycheck, right? And they're going through some stuff. They're going through divorces. They're going through illnesses with kids, whatever the case may be. We all got our problems, but keeping an eye on your crew, man. Like, get to know your crew on their normal, so you know what's not normal. If the dude who's always showing up at 6:15 is now showing up, 2 minutes to 7 consistently, like, maybe he had a one-off, but if it's consistent, man, like, that's a sign something might be off. Or if someone's coming, the first thing they throw you a zinger when they come in the morning and they've been quiet, like, maybe that's a sign. And there's nothing wrong with, the stigma's broken about mental health, right? There's nothing wrong with pulling a guy aside and saying, hey man, I've noticed this, maybe I'm wrong, but I just want to reach out to you and say, hey, if you got to talk or if something's on your mind, I'm here for you, right? In confidence.
Right. And that's not even an officer thing. That's
no.
That's a brother thing. That's a sister thing. Right? That's a dialed in firefighter knowing his or her crew and knowing, like, hey, you and I are the same level and you're not where you usually are. And, that's from having that good working relationship with people that you love to work with.
Yep. And it should come from... Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, I was saying you're right. Like, I was just going to say that same thing. It should come from the same level person. I think it's a better delivery than having an officer tell you, hey, can I see you in my office real quick, or take him out to another part of the office or the station. And you have a 10-minute chat with the officer. Now everyone's going to be talking about that conversation. Oh, what are they talking about? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that?
I think some of those officer discussions can be tough, because if you work for somebody for so long, like, you become friends with that person, right? You know their personal lives. You kind of know the struggles that they're going through, and it's where do you draw the line between friend and boss? So I think it's easier on the boss, even if a fellow firefighter comes to them, just airs out their grievances to that fellow firefighter and see if they can get that thing rectified. And if it needs to go to the boss, then, like, we can tackle this together, man. Hey, like, this is something I think the lieutenant needs to know about. Like, I'm here for you. We'll have a private meeting, man. I just don't want this to be a distraction here, and we want the best outcome for you, right? It's the difficult conversations that people need to have. And believe me, they're 100%. Not easy, right? Nobody wants to bring that up to people.
No. And again, like you said, like, there's just some people that just have some bad days too. And it's literally just like, maybe you're not feeling it. And that's cool. And that's where it's still that conversation of, or just a question. You okay today? Yeah, I'm just not feeling today. Just mentally, I don't want to be here. Cool. All right, man. I'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
That's about it. As long as you, like, instead of ignoring them, I think that's what happens a lot, is it just those people continue to be ignored. And then that problem just builds and builds and builds. Now it's too late, and then a bad thing happens because they felt like they were just ignored, or no one cared to actually talk to them. So I think that's honestly, I feel in my mind, that's a big problem of some of these suicides that we have in our field of service. And, the thing is too, is I don't know, we do a great job of studying for firefighter rescue and, data over drama. And we have a lot of good research out there for numbers of grabs and, and numbers of how they entered the building and where the victim was. Do we have research? And I know it sounds kind of morbid, but I think it's important. We should have research of why our members are taking these extreme measures to end their lives. Why did they do it? Is it financial? Is it marital? Is it just something underlying that we don't know? And of course, the problem is how do we know, right? It's not like everybody leaves a note or a reason why. But I would love to know more about it so we can hopefully get to the root of the problem and find out why this is happening. Is it from something they've seen in the service? Is it the years on and PTSD is built in? Is it built in within our own walls of our fire departments? Have we've lost focus on our men and women where the upper staff is not taking the time to find out what's going on with their men and women, and we're having these issues? Is it the brotherhood and the sisterhood? Are we not taking the time to talk to our fellow brothers and sisters? And like you just said, like there's a problem, it shouldn't be an officer checking in on it. It should be us. So that goes through my mind a lot, is why is this happening? I hope if we're not doing research on it, we do need to do research. We do a great job of research of cancer. We do a great job of researching about underlying cardiac problems. We do a great job about, again, what we do in the field of doing surveys for how we get people out and how long a fire takes to build up and reading smoke. But I think we should also do a research and study of why we're losing members to suicide. What is happening? What is going on with that?
What's happening? What's going on with it? What can we do better? What can we do better?
Sorry, that was my soapbox, by the way. I get passionate about that, and I don't think we're doing enough to find out why.
No, I mean, as a peer supporter, like that's a passion of mine too. Like, what is causing these people to get to this point? Right? Is it? I mean, have they sought therapy? Have they talked to somebody? And there's nothing wrong with going to therapy, right? I think it should be a requirement for all of us to go to therapy after the things that we do and see. Right? None of us, not a single person in the fire service is right in the head. Like, that's my honest opinion. Like, you can't be, or you'll go insane in this job. But I think and there's no shame in that. And there's no shame in talking to your crew, right? Because you see you're on scene of a bad incident or something like that. You come home, and I'll share a personal story, right? Earlier this year in January, we had a really bad car wreck, double fatal, double ejection. I didn't know about the fatal. There was 100 cop cars there, and they were pointing to the people who got ejected. We scooped them in the ambulance. We did our thing, and we left. And then we got word that there was 2 fatals in the other car, and we had to go back. A couple hours later, the station I was at, we had to go cut them out for the ME. I knew that was happening. I knew that was going to come, and I talked to some guys who were there, and like, bro, it's not good. So we went there, man, and we did our thing, and like, I sat at the coffee table for probably about 2 hours before I went home, because I just needed to. Nobody was saying a word. Like, you could tell everybody was kind of all in the same mindset. And I'm just like, I need to sit here before I take a 20-minute drive home, right? And I couldn't really process my stuff, man. And I got home and like saw my wife, and that very easily could have been her out on the road. It was an innocent person driving, right? A wrong way head-on collision, could have easily been family member or a friend at 1 a.m. I broke down, man. Like, I couldn't emotionally take that when I saw my wife. And I came in the next day and I told my crew that, like, there's no shame in it. Like, man, I went home, and I guess all the things that bottled up inside of me just came out all at once when I saw my family. So this is kind of what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm processing, in case one of you guys are feeling the same way. And if you are, I don't need to know about it if you don't want to share it, but just know it's okay to process this stuff like this. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay. Once you understand that, you can pick yourself up and you can keep moving.
Yep. 100%, man. And I think you nailed it. Like, to be open like that. Not everyone could be open about their emotions and what they're feeling, what they're going to their crew members. And, it's pretty amazing that you're able to do that and have that open communication and not be afraid to tell them, like, hey, I had a break, like mentally or just emotionally, I had that breakdown for a moment. That hit home to me, right? And I think it's also important too that I think especially for upper management, you don't want to have to impose a rule on them or say I'm making you talk to somebody, because we're all pretty stubborn. We're alpha people, in the fire service. And when you have upper management saying, I want you to talk to this person, well, it might not be the person they want to talk to. And I think that carries a lot of weight as well. The employee assistant programs, a lot of them don't work. And I think that's why a lot of guys don't reach out to them, because it's not who they want to talk to. And sometimes they just need to talk to somebody that understands us. And, I'll go with my history as well. As, for example, like there was a fatal accident I worked. It was many years ago, and it involved a teenage girl. and she died on the bypass in the community I live in when I was on the call department. And it was a very tough call. And my upper staff, the upper management, they really didn't do anything to address it. And they just kind of ignored the whole call. It sounds weird, but they just didn't really like sit down with us right after and say, hey, is everyone okay? It wasn't a nurturing environment. It was like, all right, we're done here. Like, you know, we can go home. And it was like, I think a couple of days later that they introduced one of, her name is Dr. Sawyer, and she did a great job. She's a lead therapist in the state for first responder mental health, and she does a fantastic job. So she was brought in just to talk about mental health and PTSD. And I was actually just angry. I was sitting there angry and pissed off because I didn't know who she was, and I didn't want to listen. And who's coming in to tell me about mental health? I'm fine. And then until she left, and we have a chaplain for the department, and so they wanted to talk about the call, which was days later, about anybody who was on a call, stay after so we could talk about it. And I didn't stay because that's not how I wanted to talk about it. You know, they're making me do this. I don't want to just talk about it. I'm fine. You know, and I never emotionally broke down from it, but I definitely carried the scars from it. But they were just the way they introduced it. And I got a text from my chief after I left, and he says, I didn't see you here at the meeting talking about it. I said, was it mandatory? And he said, well, no. I said, well, good. I don't want to talk to that person about it. I don't like talking to him, and he wasn't there and he doesn't get it. So I don't want to talk to him. And, you know, I think for us is we're going to talk to people on our own time. When you start making it mandatory or, you know, demand that you do it at their time that they want you to finally talk about it. Well, that's not what I want to do. You know, you missed your opportunity when the call was fresh in our minds, where we probably maybe could have used somebody to put their hand on my shoulder and say, hey, are you okay? That was a pretty bad wreck.
Yeah.
So again, kind of long-winded, but I think we definitely, there's still areas we need to work on, and we're doing better. But I honestly think a lot of times it's a lot of people get lost in the shuffle, and maybe we just become numbers in the game and don't get that help until it's too late. Yeah. But switching gears, I know it's kind of depressing there, so we're going to switch gears on that. But so we'll get back into some basic stuff too. So like you really love engine work, and you said you love hoses and nozzles. And what is it about the hoses and nozzles and hose advancement? Why do you love doing that so much as opposed to truck work or any other like tech work?
Well, I'm a firm believer that engine work is God's work, but I digress from there. Hey, everything we do on the fire ground supports search and rescue, right? Everything. Fire attack, ventilation, forcible entry, everything supports search and rescue. That's our primary goal. And I am a firm believer that that nozzle and that hose that you have in your hands is the single greatest tool on the fire ground that can make the biggest difference for a victim or potential victim, right? My department has a really good mentality of treating a home occupied or structure occupied until we deem that it is not. I don't give a shit. I mean, I do, but I don't give a shit if someone's telling me everybody's out of the house. There are numbers, firefighter rescue survey, you know, whatever the small percentage is that reports of everyone being out of the house with a victim found. Even if it's 3%, 5%, whatever it is, 3 or 5 out of 100 is 3 or 5 human lives out of 100, right? I'm here for all 100 human lives. Right. So I'm a firm believer that is the best thing that we can do is if we don't know if that house is occupied, or even if we get reports that it's not, we go in, we put the fire out, we make conditions better, one for us, and along with coordinated ventilation and all that good stuff. And we make the conditions better for any potential victims inside. So we can get inside, we can occupy space, and we begin our searches, man. That's what really drives me, because that hose and that nozzle is the biggest tool that's there for them. And it is so much more. I'm going to get some pushback from guys at work, but it is so much more than just putting wet stuff on the red stuff, right? There is a science.
Man, you're absolutely 100% right. And it is more than just putting water on the fire. You need to know where you're putting the water on the fire. Mm-hmm. You could just open up a nozzle and just spray, but nothing's going to really happen. You're going to have to work a lot harder to make it go out if you're just doing that method. I've had some pushback as well, where I've heard people tell me like, well, it doesn't matter what kind of hose or nozzle, like as long as you open it up and get water out of it, the problem's going to go away. Yeah, but how long is it going to take to do that? You know, we want to solve the problem now, and we want to rescue victims now, and if we're not putting water where it needs to be applied, then we're not making that problem go away any more faster than anything else. And I love also that you said that the hose and the nozzle is a tool. And I firmly agree to that, man. Like, it's a tool that is a weapon, and it is something that we're using to kill something. We're killing that fire. And I think a lot of people forget that it is a tool, and sometimes it doesn't get described as that. I really agree that that nozzle, that hose, is a tool. We call it in the textbooks a tool, and it needs to be thought of as that. I was having this discussion just the other day for training, and we were talking about operating a hose line with a tool in your hand as well, and that's pretty cumbersome. And now I'm curious about your takes on that. When you're operating a hose line, are you also have a tool or Halligan or axe, or do you have a tool in your hand as you're pushing in with a hose line?
So how my system runs, I say I work on an engine company, but my station has an engine and an ambulance, 2 on the engine, 2 on the ambulance. If we're both in service, we respond as a 4-person engine company, which is great, right? So we got an officer doing his jazz, you got the pump operator doing his jazz. The nozzleman's sole job is to take that line and get it to the door, get it flaked out by themselves. That's my lieutenant's expectation. The backup firefighter will take a set of irons and a hook. And I always, when I'm the backup firefighter, I take both, and whatever I don't need, I throw them in the bushes. So if I need it, if I'm pushing through, maybe searching with a Halligan and we're done, we need to do some overhaul, I just crawl back out of the line, toss my Halligan in the bushes, grab my hook. Nobody's stealing my tools. All right. But personally, me, getting back to your question, no. As a nozzle person, my sole job is to go find the fire and put it out. And I like to make this analogy of we're like a big 12 sports car, the nozzleman and the backup guy. The nozzleman, all he's doing is sitting back with his gold chain, his white beater on, driving his car with the top down, right? That backup firefighter, they're the V12 engine. They're the ones who's pushing that line. They're going to have the tool with them. They're responsible for searching off the line. They're doing all the work. Nozzle person is a heat-seeking missile, man. You go, you get that fire, your nozzle is your tool. You don't let go of your tool until that fire is kicked in the teeth.
Yeah. So even so, the backup guy too. So the backup guy's got his tool as well. So he's humping hose line. He's doing pinch points. He's being a good heel man, right? And that takes 2 hands to be a really good heel man. How are you doing that with a tool in your hand?
Basically, if I'm the backup firefighter and we'll move a little bit of line, and if I got to park myself in a position, I'll find a wall or something, dig that Halligan into the wall, or just set it down underneath my knee, park myself in a corner, and I'll just keep moving line. I got some kind of contact on that tool, and once I can kind of free up a hand, if I can use one hand to crawl and move that line, I'll just take the tool right behind me, man.
Love it.
When the line is stopped and I know I hear water on the fire, that's my cue to put that tool down on the hose line. I use it as an anchor point, and my job is to start searching. It is so aggravating for me to see a dedicated search team coming right behind a hose line. What are we doing? We're doubling. We occupy space as a nozzle, as a fire attack team, as we're moving. We occupy space. Like if we're going to come across somebody, we're going to come across somebody. And nothing is more aggravating than that, or seeing a nozzle team stop once the fire is knocked out and just kind of stand there and start pulling some ceiling. That is your time to search. You own that space. You own the space from your entry point to wherever the fire was. Firefighter rescue survey, again, if it's a kitchen fire, a dining room fire, a living room fire, that search crew is much better used going to the bedrooms where 45% statistically 24 hours a day victims are found. So I am super, super passionate about that. And that takes a shit ton of discipline. And that backup firefighter, man, a total unsung hero. Nobody gives a shit who you are. Nobody knows who you are. They just know, well, hey, Bova had the line. Bova had the tip today. Nobody knows who his backup firefighter is. But I would not get that recognition if it wasn't for the people who are helping me move line. And in my system, sometimes the boss likes to be the second person on the hose line. And we just do not have enough people for that boss to not be a backup firefighter. So in addition to doing all their bossly work, operating the radio, using the tick, doing whatever they do, they got to move line too. It's just a nature of the short staff fire service that we're all dealing with.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I love it. I'll debate a little bit. When you say throw it in the bushes, don't you think that's a little problematic? Would you prefer to stage it, like try to stage at the door or the breezeway?
When I say throw it in the bushes, it's metaphor for just stash it behind a bush somewhere. Because how many times do you set a hook down in the grass and then somebody just walks up and takes it? Right. And then you can't figure out where the hell your hook went or your Halligan went or your set of irons went. Right. I take, as a backup firefighter, we take the set of irons and a hook, whatever we don't need. I put it in a little strategic spot where I know where it's at, where nobody else knows where it's at. So I can just come back out, grab it if I need it.
Nice.
Seems to
Love it.
work really well for me.
Sure, man. I think
Yeah.
that's great. Now, how important is it that you, when you're training your guys, not just for hose advancement, but you talked about like nozzles as well. Do you really educate them on the importance of knowing your nozzles and what kind of nozzles you're using, and the mechanics of them, and whether they're how they might malfunction or the nozzle reaction of them? Do you operate different nozzles? Do you have a combination nozzle and a smooth bore? Is it an automatic nozzle? What kind of nozzles do you operate, and how do you train them on that?
So on all of our pre-connected hose lines, we run 7/8 inch Akron tips. That's pretty standard across the board. The only combination nozzle we have right now is on our trash line or dumpster fire line. So that happened a couple of years ago where we just did a complete overhaul. We used to have combination nozzles on our automatic combo nozzles on all of our pre-connected lines, our fire attack lines. And now they're all 7/8 smooth bores. Southfield is a very unique city. We classify anything 4 stories or higher as a high rise. We have over 100 of them in the city right now. So if we're deploying a quick attack 1 3/4 hose line, we run a 15/16 tip just to give us a little bit more water in those situations. Yeah, going back to your question, I think it's pivotal that you know your equipment, you know the limitations of it. Like if your department is running a combination nozzle, an automatic combination nozzle, fixed gallonage, whatever the case may be, understand how it works. Because when you, again, going back to the why, if you understand why and how something works, you can understand how it works and how it can malfunction, right? And what you can do to overcome those malfunctions. We teach about the smooth bores. We teach, hey, your 7/8 smooth bore here, you're going to be putting out 160 gallons a minute of water, and it's going to be pushing back at you at about 60 pounds, right? So just something to get used to. And then we'll put them on the 2.5. Where now, hey, look, you're flowing 100 gallons a minute more, but it's pushing back at you at almost 40 more pounds, right? Almost 100 pounds. So it's just kind of a give and take thing. So you understand exactly how your weapon is operating.
Now, why did you guys make it? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The last thing I need to do is put you on a 2.5 for the very first time on a scene, and you get your ass kicked by it because you don't understand the equipment, don't understand the limitations of you and that equipment put together.
Absolutely, man. I love it. I love it. So what was the change for swapping out and just going smooth bores for your attack lines?
I'll be completely honest with you, man. I showed up to work one day and we had a bunch of smooth bore nozzles. So my department, and I'm sure just like yours and a lot of other suburban departments, we're turning people over like crazy, right? A lot of retirements from those mid to late 90s, early 2000s hires. Those guys are starting to go in droves now. So I got 6 years on Southfield right now. Never in my wildest dreams would I thought I have 80 or not 80. I have 50 badge numbers underneath me right now.
Wow, so, dude, that's a lot. Wow.
Guys like me, like we're starting to become we like to joke the junior senior men, right? So I'm the senior guy at my house right now with 6 years on the job. It's me and 2 guys less time than me and my lieutenant who just hit 20 years. But anyway, the upbringing of all these like-minded individuals, like, and these push for smoothbore nozzles and understanding, hey, you're putting out more gallons per minute, you have less nozzle reaction, and it's a little bit easier on your pump, right? And combining that with a good hose to create a good attack package, that's a win for everybody. So we were kind of pushing that. We were kind of, I almost want to say speaking it into existence. We put it in the ear of the training captain, and then they were ordered. I'm not sure there was a committee or anything, and I'll leave my opinion out of that. But we showed up one day. We had 7/8 smoothbore nozzles, 15/16 for our high rise, 1.125 for our 2.5, and you don't hear me complaining. And believe me, I'll get in a spirited conversation with it or debate conversation with anybody about smoothbore versus combination nozzle.
I think it's great, dude. I love it. I think it's cool that you guys are moving in the right direction. And I've made the argument before with people I speak to, and it's really, honestly, it's about the end user for our products that we're using, right? The tools that we're using. If the end user is not having buy-in, and if the end user doesn't have faith in the product, then, which is us as the end user, then how much of a performance do you expect out of us if you're just forcing certain tools that we don't believe in, whether it's an automatic, whether it's a smooth bore. And I mean, you can't just give things to guys just to give them because they want them. But if they're making good arguments and they have the data and the numbers and the science behind it, then how can you deny the fact that this is going to be better for our performance and for our job and for the citizens? And again, if you just force upon whatever size tip that they believe in or whatever kind of nozzle, whether it's an automatic or a smoothbore, if the upper staff is saying you're going to have this because I'm telling you, then, and they're not pulling the lines and they're not opening up those nozzles, and then the guys on the end, again, the end user is not going to really want to have anything to do with it. And they're going to use it, but they're not going to really have that faith into it. And if something goes wrong, they're just going to immediately point the finger back at him and go, well, see, this is why we didn't want it. This doesn't work right for us. And I think it's important for everybody to have buy-in and to listen to the end user, but the end user needs to be respectful to the upper staff as well and understand there's budget issues, or there's, you know, you need to have the courtesy to give them the information that they're going to need to bring it to whoever the budget committee is. They're not going to be say, well, Firefighter Goldstein wants a hen nozzle because he wants it and he thinks it looks cool on YouTube, and so he wants it on the truck. And, you know, our crews presented us with the facts, numbers, and figures that this hen nozzle is going to provide a much better customer service. And when our staffing is low and we only have 3 people, well, this hen nozzle is going to give you 160 gallons per minute, and it's going to put the fire out in half the time that a normal automatic nozzle would do.
Yeah, a lot of us boots on the ground firefighters forget about the money aspect, right? We just see something, we want it, and we push it up. Like, I get it, like money rules, right? We got budgets to listen to, but my department we've been pretty good about getting minds together, getting committees together, and just researching stuff. And it's funny you mentioned Dave Quick. I had probably an hour-and-a-half phone conversation with him a couple of years ago about the Super 2 Mercedes hose. We got a couple sticks to play around with and test with, and we were doing some things, because right now we run an 1.75 inch and a 2.5 inch high-rise package. Nobody takes the 2.5 inch up, right? Just because it's a 2.5 inch. So I'm like, what is some happy medium here? Because we have a lot of old standpipe systems and a lot of old buildings that I'm not quite certain is going to give us what NFPA 14 requires, right? So what is a good alternative? So we did some testing with the Super 2. We put all of our companies on my shift. We ran them through a high-rise stairwell stretch evolution with the 1.75 inch and the Super 2 inch hose. And we let them float a little bit, and we got some feedback. We haven't purchased anything yet. We'd like to get the lines back again to do a little bit more testing, but we had a lot of favorable feedback, and I actually got a lot of good information on building your standpipe attack packages, doing all the calculations and that from Dave Quick. So it was funny you mentioned that name.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's definitely the dude to talk to you about those kind of applications, especially for the high rise, and he loves that stuff so much. And I, again, talking about him is when he talks about on various podcasts about building your attack packages and the way you should go about building your attack packages, not also just the tool itself, but the approach. And again, like if you start complaining about that and say, well, I don't like that hose load, or I don't like this nozzle. Well, the person you're saying how much you hate it to might be the person who actually instituted it, and he did his homework and said, this is going to be best for our department. And, you know, many years ago, he might've built that whole system. And then now you got some young buck who only has 5 years on complaining about it. And, you know, the only thing he knows is what he saw from YouTube. And then as he's complaining to the guy that did his actual homework and put his boots on the ground and made sure that he was giving his department the best. And you're going to piss him the fuck off because he just spent years developing a system that he thinks is going to work for his department. And here comes some schmuck that has limited experience and knowledge because he saw it on YouTube or Instagram and says, yeah, this is going to work better. And you need to be respectful to those people that you're asking for more money or who's going to make the ultimate decision. And I think too, like, you know, again, what Dave said about building your package is the fact that you got to be respectful of the people you're talking to, but present them with the data. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned over the years is be prepared to answer those tough questions of why it has to be this way or why you want it. You can't just come up to them and go, I want to do this because it looks cool, or, you know, some other department has it and I like it. And I got a lot of information from him just talking about how to build your attack packages and getting the reason why a nozzle might be better over another one. And like you said, like, you know, nozzle reaction over an automatic fog nozzle, you're going to have less wear on your end user and make their job a lot easier. So yeah, he's super knowledgeable, and I'm so happy I got him in my state that he's preaching that good word and spreading the gospel of good attack packages and how to go about and building them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Winding down, do you have any other conferences that you're going to, or do you have any other opportunities that you're going to be teaching at, or just to be a student of?
Man, ever since my daughter got here, I kind of put a lot of that stuff on the back burner.
Yeah.
I am 100% family focused first. Like I'm definitely for the classes that I am taking coming up. I'm just trying to get into some ICS classes. We have promotions coming up here hopefully soon. I am eligible to test for lieutenant, so I'm gonna
Nice.
put some investment into that, get the classes done, get some studying done for that. And my wife is very understanding. She understands that that is a goal, the next goal of my career, and
Sure.
understands that this is with all the retirements that we have happening. We're expected to make 7 lieutenants in the next 2 years.
Wow.
So there's a
Yeah.
really good shot for some young guys to get a spot, and she understands
That's
that. So
great.
just putting in some classes like that. But other than that, anything I got to do, anything I want to do, I got to get the permission slip or the hall pass signed, right?
Sure.
I'm just trying to lay low, focus on being a good dad before I can be a good fireman or anything else. Like that's
I
priority
love
number
it.
one. But I'll be
Yeah. Don't
back.
rush it, man.
Great Lakes Hot is coming up June this year. I'm not doing any teaching, but I will be heavily involved, like with the logistics and doing the hands-on stuff for the Southfield site, which we were last year. I was part of the burn team, and we did over 20 burns in our tower. They were doing
Wow.
mid-rise. Todd Edwards and company mid-rise mayhem. So we had fires going on floor 2 and floor 4, and it was all day, and it was a lot of fun, and it sucked, and it was great, and it was everything. So I'll be back involved with that in June, but for now, just kind of lay it low.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Congratulations on all that,
Thank
dude.
you.
That is super cool. And yeah, don't rush fatherhood. Enjoy every stinking moment of those diapers.
Oh man.
It's gonna be some headaches, but I tell you, man, when they become 15, you're gonna look back and go, what happened to my baby? And,
Right.
I do that a lot now as I've become a father. I have twin girls, and now they're 15, and I think about that every day. And like, man, and I always say to them, man, you used to be so cute. Now look at you. And they of course don't like it when I tell them they're not cute anymore. Yeah, don't rush it. Same thing with fire service, man. It's the same thing as being a father. Honestly, it's the same thing in the fire service. Don't rush it. Like, take every opportunity you can
Mm-hmm.
to let it grow around you, that you can learn everything about your department and everything about being a better firefighter. It's just like being a better father. The fatherhood comes naturally, but it takes a lot of work. And for some people, firefighting becomes a natural state, but it also takes a lot of work. You just don't become excellent overnight. Like, you got to work at all parts of it as being a father and being a firefighter. And my biggest suggestion for you for being a new dad is enjoy every moment, appreciate it. Like you said, man, you're working on being a good dad, and that's all you can be. And like I say, if you try to immerse yourself too much in the fire service, you're gonna lose a lot of good moments with your kids, and you don't get those back. So I love that that your focus is on family first.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, bro. Love it. Well, thank you so much, man, Ricky. I really appreciate you being on this with me. This has been fantastic. Before I let you go, too, is when you're working out and you're doing all these physically demanding workouts and marathons, do you have like motivational music? Like, what kind of music do you listen to, or what drives you to keep going in your ears? I love to listen to music when I'm working out, so I'm curious what you listen to.
Man, I got a playlist full of everything. Like
Yeah,
just everything just to keep the mind kind of active. Cause I mean, you can go into kind of a lull. I like to be present in the moment, right? As easy it is to kind of turn off when you're doing like a 20-mile training run or something. I like to be present, man. And this sounds sick, but I like to feel when it hurts, right?
sure.
Because when it hurts, you're making progress. I like to feel that and just smile at it and say, all right, what's next? What do I got to keep going, man? But I'll just run everything through my mind, dude. I'll look at a house and I'll run a size up in my head, man. While I'm listening to music, just what would I do if a fire was here or here or here? And I keep that picture in my head for the next mile. And then, damn, I was just running for, 8 minutes and didn't even think about it.
Oh
So
man, that's great.
there's a time where you can turn your mind off, but I kind of like to be present and I like to be kind of enjoying what I'm doing. So
Sure,
to
man.
answer your
That
question,
makes
yeah,
sense.
the music's all over the place. And if I get one
Okay.
genre, it'll get mundane when you're out there for hours.
Very cool, dude. I love it, man. Well, Ricky Bova, thank you so much to the Southfield Fire Department in Michigan. And I'm speaking to somebody who actually knows what cold is like. So I know it's cold there, it's cold here, and it's become a frozen tundra for this time of year. So I definitely appreciate you, man. And it has been a blast talking with you, man. You are one dialed in dude, and I can't wait to hear more about you. Make sure you keep up with me about your successes and what you do. I'd love to hear if you've got the lieutenant position as well. So don't be a stranger, okay?
Promise, man. But thank you again for this opportunity to get my story out there. I hope it inspires or drives somebody, keep doing what you're doing too, man. This is great. Keep
Thanks,
building
man. I
on
really
this.
appreciate it.
You got a really great foundation. You have some great guests. Keep building on it.
I appreciate the hell of you, man. That's great. I love the words. I love the support. And like we're talking about mental health as well in this program. If anybody needs help and if you're ever struggling, there's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of websites. The biggest one for me is Next Rung. Those guys are all about mental health and taking care of our brothers and sisters. So if you're looking for information, look up Next Rung. They're there for us. They raise a lot of money for mental health. They're doing it all for us. And if you need help with something and you don't have an answer or you don't know who to reach out to, like I said to many people, I'm transparent. I'm an open book. And if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me. I'm on social media. You can get a hold of me. You can just send me a message on Facebook and we could talk it through together. There's a lot of brothers and sisters out there that are there for you. So don't make a temporary problem a permanent solution. So everybody needs somebody and somebody needs you. So don't take your life for granted. Be in the now. Be here for everybody that wants to see you. So Ricky Bova, thank you so much. This was the C.A.N Report. Mike Goldstein Stickers coming at you with another great episode. Thank you so much all for listening. And until next time, we'll see you later.